Hey guys, Ryan here to talk about the plethora of Mighty Morphin figures we've had, and which are the ones you should look out for. So Power Rangers new owner Hasbro know that MMPR is gold. That's one of their core brand assets. As with Bandai, they'll always have the biannual stability of the main line. New suits, new themes every 2 years, that's steady inwards revenue, primarily from a new audience every time, but they have to work to make people want that. MMPR is like the intellectual property that keeps paying dividends, like that one hit song that keeps getting money through plays every single year. That's who we want back for each anniversary episode, and who appears in the New York Thanksgiving Day Parade every year. As well, we know Bandai were the original gatekeepers of those suits back in the 90s. In the beginning, they actually gave us quite a lot of variation. Here in Europe, we got their versions of the Zyuranger toys, 4-inch plastic and die-cast figures, as well as the iconic triangular 8-inch figures, along with a comparable villains wave, all in the same scale. Then, about a year after the show premiered in America, they created what would become the most iconic action figure of the decade, the Morphin Power Ranger figure. These were 5.5-inch figures with scaled up weapons from the 4-inch ones that could even be slotted together to form the Power Blaster. They were fun, so much so that they were often revisited up and down the timeline of different seasons of the show, either in reissues of these or in new versions for their respective year. Like with the 8-inch figures, they also did a full range of evil space aliens in the same scale, so you could battle to your heart's content. As the years drifted by, that kind of became the model that they stuck with. We would get gradual new versions of the 8-inch figures that talked, and we would get new metallic versions of the Morphins. And of course they would incorporate the White Ranger and the 3 Rangers that took over for Red, Yellow and Black. So there were plenty of these figures to go at. But then that was it. Bar a few Power Playback and Power Rangers Heroes re-releases in America over the years, these were your bona fide options for the Power Rangers action figures. 12 years would go by without so much as a peep on any new take of the old team. But then for the 15th anniversary, Bandai would start to dust off the cobwebs. Alongside their main toy line for Operation Overdrive, they would release a 15th anniversary line of 6.5-inch Red Ranger figures. Admittedly 5 years too late to take advantage of the Forever Red team-up special, but hey, they got there in the end. They realised that there was definitely money in having a uniform line of figures. I think that's something that I'm kind of realising about Power Ranger fans. We really have a bit of OCD about things all looking in scale. So we got our first collector's edition Mighty Morphin Red Ranger, and kind of our second in a box set of static posed figures, and also sort of our third, which seemed to be a partially metallic 8-inch version, but it was still just the Red Ranger. However, soon they would add Green Ranger to the mix, albeit in a completely different scale again. Bandai kind of dipped a toe in the nostalgic packaging waters during Jungle Fury with a Super Legends line. They gave us Green and White Ranger and Lord Zed, super articulated and with removable shields. It was our first glimpse of what a White Ranger with a kind of Mighty Morphin diamond emblem as part of his suit might look like. Not accurate to the show, given that he was originally from a totally different year of Sentai, but kind of a nice touch and one that they would actually revisit again. We'd get another big Green Ranger figure during RPM, but still evading us was a complete team. This all changed, however, when Mighty Morphin returned in a big little way in 2010 with 4-inch action figures. 4-inch. They had dropped 2 whole inches on the previous year's RPM basic line of action figures. They'd also developed these rather comic booky proportions, giant hands and feet, tiny heads. They did do all 7 Rangers, really impressive given that the episodes that were being revisioned for TV got nowhere near the White Ranger. Unfortunately, their weapons did not slot together in the way the old Morphins ones had, but they did release a combined version with a Putty action figure, which was reasonable of them. So around 2010, no new episodes were going to be produced, but Bandai weren't done. This must have been their chief money maker, and they wanted to push ahead with a new samurai themed line based on what was coming out of Japan from the next Sentai, Shinkenger. We very almost got a few new Morphin figures of the Samurai Rangers based on the Mighty Morphin Power Ranger actors. Very strange. Pictures exist, presumably prototypes did at some stage, but they got false alarmed as Samurai episodes went into production and were created with a real-life human cast. I just can't begin to express my astonishment at these. How far would they have taken it? So Mighty Morphin found itself shelved again, and not in a good way. The only figure that was released during the Samurai toy line was a carryover from MMPR 2010 and is not fondly remembered, though at least it did give us our first version of a Rita Repulsor figure ever. Saban and Bandai were safe again following the Sentai. MMPR wasn't needed or a priority and was back in the rearview mirror, but this time they didn't fully forget, and things started simmering in the background. We get towards a pretty big anniversary. We get towards Power Rangers 20. They started by acknowledging Jason and Tommy in a new Armoured series alongside the Megaforce Rangers. They also released chase figures of Red and White Ranger, another chance to get those 2010 versions, but in a new red metallic or white pearlescent coating, alongside the equivalent Megaforce action figures too. So Mighty Morphin had entered back alongside the main line again. Pretty much all of these bore the Power Rangers 20 logo, the same one that appeared on the two legacy products also being sold that year. There was quite an explosion of licensing made for Power Rangers 20, like the Monopoly, the Trivial Pursuit. So really, Power Rangers from the beginning were back front and centre again. It very much continued the same year with the SH Figuarts line, where Bandai and Tamashii Nations teamed up to give us all 7 Mighty Morphin Power Rangers over the course of a year's worth of releases. The range included a male and female Yellow Ranger in recognition of Z-Ranger, where the character was a male. There were also armoured Red and Black Rangers. These are collectibles, non-toys, expensive, but to most perfect. The best rendition of these figures ever. Incredible articulation, an enviable range of accessories, alternate hands. These were Power Rangers figures unlike any we'd had before. But they also weren't really toys. So we'd mentioned Bandai America had hit on something new and quite successful called the Legacy line. And in Super Megaforce for 2014, a series that was focused on the past of the series, they not only included Red, Green and White Ranger in the new 5-inch Action Hero action figure line, they also did slightly more premium versions under the Legacy moniker, though this wasn't actually acknowledged on the boxes, and I'm pretty sure it was a bit of a late addition to the name. That meant we got the rest of the team with painted weapons, including Armoured Red and Fighting Spirit Green with the infamous silver stripe on the helmet, but still our first ever figure of a suit that at the time had amounted to an error. They would also get more mileage out of these figures with a re-release of the 5 main Rangers a few years down the road in the 2017 Then and Now packs to coincide with the movie. Also during Super Megaforce, they would give us Tommy's Green Ranger form in that Armoured Might 8-inch scale, though this will be the final Mighty Morphin one realised in that height and sculpture. In 2015, Bandai shipped a second generation of the popular Mighty Morphin Legacy figures, this time based on the 95 theatrical movie. If you remember what they'd originally shipped out as movie figures in the 90s, these were so much better and even introduced removable heads on ball joints, though nothing to replace them with, plus rotating wrists and ankles. They seem to be nudging towards more articulation in their collectors focused figures, but it wouldn't actually be until 2016 that they delivered a completely new take on them. A slight tangent as well to acknowledge Fisher-Price's Imaginext series, which actually gave us an insane amount of MMPR characters in the same 3-inch scale. That's it, that's all I wanted to say about them, but the rich variation and faithfulness to getting as much from the screen into the line was really impressive, and they definitely made the most of that license while they held it. What was interesting in the action figure world at the time was that Hasbro's Marvel Legends and Star Wars Black series were really picking up steam. Our collector's slice of the industry was collectively crying out for Power Rangers to scale up and treat the characters with the same care and attention that other brands were treating their properties. Bandai were very secretive about this release. They initially didn't allow people to take photos of them at toy fairs, though they would eventually start the Mighty Morphin team all over again in a brand new legacy scale. The new figures started with Jason's Red and Tommy's Green Ranger powers alongside 3 of the 6 Rangers from Ninja Storm, starting close to 3 years of mixed waves containing multiple teams. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't as frenetic as how Hasbro do their anthology waves these days, but at the time it was quite alarming to get a collection which could only be added to incrementally. And unlike the first round of Bandai's legacy figures where they actually showed us a picture of the complete team that they would release over 2 waves, the 6.5-inch legacy figures, you were kind of taking it on blind faith that the a full team would be released and would actually look good when it was. Also, to the detriment of their success, the figures were actually bigger than the Marvel Legends industry standard 6-inch scale at 6.5 inches. They had strange proportions and didn't contain many weapons, choosing to favour the Builder Megazord pieces over the Rangers' signature weapons, which I and presumably many of you feel are one of the two main things to tell these figures apart, the other thing being their civilian heads. I won't rip too hard on the legacy figures in this video, because they did eventually give us all 7 Mighty Morphin Rangers across 3 waves, then the 5 main Rangers in a metallic variant with their weapons. Though unlike the 2014 5-inch figures, these were semi-translucent weapons that weren't able to combine. They also did a Tommy metallic convention exclusive box set, which would become your only way to get a full metallic team of Mighty Morphin. And they included their run with the Power Morphicon exclusive Lord Drakkon figure, which seemed to take on this infamy as it was short supplied due to the end of the toy license contract, and briefly took on a life of its own as the expensive must-have, despite apparently having one of the loosest ab joints of the whole line. That was quite a big choice at the time though, to incorporate what had only been comic book characters in alongside the main recognised 20+ year old team. And finally, Bandai's legacy figures petered out with an armoured Red Ranger sold exclusively through GameStop. The 25th anniversary was marked by Bandai planning to re-release the Automorphin figures from '94 in replication packaging, exactly the same as the 90s originals, just, 4 times the price. They must have been a bit sick of the criticism of trying to do something new through the legacy line and thought, fine, we'll just give you exactly what we gave you before, you won't complain then. And they nearly did this so well. Whereas the Legacy Megazord recycled a 20-year-old box and a 3-year-old toy, the Automorphin re-releases were 99% close replicas to their originals and actually introduced head rotation to the civilian heads for the first time. Shame they couldn't have done it for the Power Ranger heads though. I covered the 2 we got in the UK at the time, blinded by childhood nostalgia and wistfully awaiting the rest of a team that would sadly never come. The reason they nearly did so well with it was because they did a strong first wave of red, green and pink, although we never actually got pink in the UK, and then wave 2, where they logically were going to be blue, black and yellow. Even though yellow was pictured on the boxes, they last minute switched her out for yet more Green Rangers. What initially seemed really promising, we never even got all of the Season 1 Rangers out of. By this time, Bandai had revealed that girl figures didn't sell, and so as their time on the shelf ticked down, they didn't even risk it. Something else that had been cancelled alongside it was the 5-inch Rita Repulsor, I understand exclusively covered on Bruno and Mia's MMPR Toys channel, and had been due to come out in one of the Power Rangers movie Then and Now packs. This would have been in scale with the Lord Zed and Ivan Ooze legacy figures they'd already done, and was a massive improvement over that 4-inch figure. I think it was a big mistake to just flat out cut out the girl figures, and I'm worried that it is kind of influencing Hasbro now in the severe lack of female figures we've had in their equivalent line. So Bandai were over, they'd finally reached the end of their road. We had been gifted 3 scales of Mighty Morphin figures in 8 years, or 4 if you count the incomplete Automorphin assortment. But it was still SH Figuarts which unquestionably reigned supreme as the nicest versions we'd had of these figures. They were impossible to get apart from on the secondary market, ballooning their value. This actually led to pared down re-releases to coincide with the now 25th anniversary of the show, red, green and white with new civilian head molds, but fewer accessories in the box. Then the drum roll started and all eyes were on Hasbro to step forward. We didn't actually have long to wait. At Power Morphicon 2018 we saw their first take on the Lightning collection, what would be their collector's line that was in scale with their new basic line and even all their other Hasbro 6-inch scale figures. Lightning collection started as an anthology series of Rangers from the brand's past. Unlike Legacy, these didn't have Builder Megazord pieces, they gave you civilian heads, a bit like those SH Figuart re-releases, but also promised to give us the weapons we needed and special effects plug-on pieces for their weapons. As we reach mid-2019 and the toy license officially changed hands, this began with Tommy's White Ranger figure, and it was pretty great overall. You can watch my review on the Wave 1 assortment. This was the most fully realised Power Rangers action figure collection we'd ever got. As subsequent waves continued, we gradually started to build up the rest of the team at a much slower pace than the legacy line, but you could argue Bandai burnt out MMPR far quicker than they needed to there. And an SDCC Jason set gave us Armoured Red and confirmed all these Rangers weapons combined like Bandai's triumphant 2014 versions. This is only the second time that painted Ranger figure weapons can form the Power Blaster. You can't really count Figuarts because they required you to use different, more show-accurate versions depending on which mode you were using. And at time of filming, we have Yellow Ranger hitting various places, Blue not far behind, and hopefully a regular Black Ranger. We've so far only had an armoured Black Ranger Walgreens exclusive figure. We also need a regular Green Ranger. They've gone and copied Bandai's 2014 decision again and given us that infamous Silver Stripe Fighting Spirit one so far. But yeah, we're still outstanding, one normal Green Ranger. So Lightning is really where most collectors are looking at the moment, especially as it's a line that consistently incorporates Mighty Morphin villains. We've already had Zed, Goldar, a Season 1 Putty, Lord Drakkon, and soon we'll have the Rita and Zed 25th Wedding Anniversary 2-pack. What's next for this line? It could really go anywhere. They know Mighty Morphin's the golden goose, and lucky for them, not only do they have 4 more civilian heads they could box with MMPR figures in Rocky, Aisha, Adam and Kat, they could also potentially do movie figures like Bandai did in 2015. There's the Metallic Armour, which you could say we've never actually had screen accurate figures of, and same for either the film or series Ninja Ranger or Ninjetti figures. I think if they continue with their current approach of giving us one Mighty Morphin per wave, and if they choose any of those 3 approaches, they've really got us for a long journey down the road yet. They've shown us they're confident to include comic book origin figures, starting with Lord Drakkon and now Ranger Slayer. Who knows how far they could take that concept. I just really hope they stop skimping out on the civilian heads and weapons. What seems to have been the main promise of this line has started creeping out of it with some of the recent releases. I should also mention Hasbro's various other ventures for Mighty Morphin. Mega Mighties, which they've released quite a few of. Hopefully Yellow Ranger won't get left off the shelf with that one like she was with Bandai's Automorphins. There also seem to be various 9.5 and 10 inch basic figures cropping up in more of a discount store style, and Hasbro at the 2020 New York Toy Fair also gave us a preview of other strange Mighty Morphin figures coming down the line, new giant sized 12 inch Automorphin figures with strange almost movie kind of series hybrid suits, but it's actually the original team of Rangers beneath the helmets. It definitely seems like Hasbro are destined to continue this dance in and out of collector lines to see what's the appropriate way to sell Power Ranger action figures. What if you don't want Hasbro's take on it though? Are there any other options out there? Well, Ace Toys have produced some rather lovely 1/6 scale figures. Very expensive and apparently not even official, but made of fabric material to hide their joints and give the most realistic looking impression to date of being actual shrunk down humans in suits. I'd get them if I could justify the price, and if you do it, definitely get the 5-pack so you can get the combined Power Blaster piece. But wow, what an idea, and again, something you just wouldn't have thought we'd have got before. You have to wonder if Hasbro are looking at this and pondering if they should maybe do their own. So in conclusion, which figures are actually best then? I know people will have their own preference and their own needs, and if you just want to pose them in a display case, SH Figuarts are probably still the best option. And very similar to Bandai's original 2014 Legacy figures, they'll look good in either your Power Chamber playset or even on the old Dino bikes. The SH Figuarts Pink Ranger might actually even be able to sit down in her sidecar. But if you don't have a concrete plan on how to pose them and you want that fluidity to recognise their teenage identities, have weapons that combine, be in scale with pretty much everything coming out from Hasbro's Power Rangers action figures line in the foreseeable future, the Lightning collection offers a very convincing and affordable argument. Is changing heads manually as fun as the Automorphins Morphin feature? Of course not. But these are less boxy figures, less artificially muscled than these second Legacy figures, and a heap of fun to pose, either individually or as a team. The Power Blaster weapon is the best I've ever seen from Power Rangers action figures, and I'm almost excited at the possibility of having to rebuy movie versions again. But again, I'd rather get the Ninjetti ones first. Plus there's all the great work Hasbro are doing with villains in the same line. If you want Mighty Morphin Power Rangers action figures, the Lightning collection is definitely the version that ticks the most boxes for the least amount of money. Now I won't pretend they're perfect. They still only supply one version of the Blade Blaster, and it's not even the version that goes in the holster. The butterfly joints I feel are really odd, especially with the white diamond effect, and people including myself have experienced various levels of QC nightmares, including but not limited to warped pieces, missing or scratched paint, misaligned decals like the diamonds on the gloves and boots, and even cracking or stress in how the figure joins together. A new one for Wave 4's Yellow Ranger figure. So there's still quite a tall mountain for Hasbro to climb, and unfortunately I just don't think they're going to give us their best work with what is their first out of the gate set of releases. I think they wanted to, that was sort of the plan with the White Ranger, but it's definitely felt more lax and belt tightening since then. Hopefully the MMPR team ends up complete and with everything we need, and that they can do enough to keep us coming back for many more. This is difficult though, and I should acknowledge that at one time or another, I've definitely called each of the past few sets of MMPR action figures the best ones we've ever had. So who's to say that when Hasbro get bored of the Lightning Collection versions or run through all the ones they think will sell, they won't just introduce a new premium series with more paint or more weapons, or maybe just be made of a better quality plastic. We just don't know. But for now, I can safely say that for MMPR at least, I don't have the same concerns about the Lightning Collection that I did about the Legacy 6.5 inch figures, so I can happily recommend them. Happy figure buying. That's it then for this one. I do hope that this was a comprehensive enough rundown of the Power Rangers action figure history. There's definitely been a lot of them, and I'm sure if the next movie rumours are true, there'll still be quite a few more coming. As ever, if you can help me out by subscribing, liking the video, YouTube will know to show it to more people, and you can always follow me on Instagram at PowerRangergram for more static Ranger figure content. And until the next time, I'll see you later.